Archery Country Podcast is your host, Big Wade, as we are sitting in Roger's studio tonight. It is night. It's dark out, but we're inching closer and closer to that magical springtime. It is, I don't even know the date today, March 5th. So that's going to leave us with some very cool time in the timber. And a lot of you already seen on your iPads or on your radio what this is about. We're talking about shed hunting. This is something that we haven't done in any of our 63 episodes because we really didn't have the expertise. I've had the expertise, but by himself, and now we got a new buddy that's part of the shop that these guys are just slingers when it comes to finding bone. Out west, down south, a little bit out east, and then right here in central Minnesota. And they got the bone here tonight to prove it. So we're going to be talking about shed hunting. All the ins and outs about it, the biological features of animals, the white-tailed deer, why they shed, when they shed, what to look for. We're going to give you tips and tricks. We're not going to give you any GPS locations. We're not going to give you any last names. But we're going to talk about door knocking. We're going to talk about how to access public land. We're going to talk about what to look for when you're out there, what time of the year, and why. And that's all coming to you in just a second. So sit back and relax, and thank you to Archery Country for our sponsorship. This episode is brought to you by Archery Country, some of the best pro shops in North America. You can find at 4 locations: Waite Park, Minnesota; Brainerd, Minnesota; Rogers, Minnesota; or our brand new location down in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Check us out on the World Wide Web at archerycountry.com. Everything that you need in the industry to make your hunt better, to make your shooting competitions better, or simply to make your equipment better. We're here for you. Knowledgeable staff, friendly staff, and awesome turnaround times. Thank you from Archery Country. All right, boys, straight across from me, I got Jack Opatz and the new reigning world champion shed hunter, I guess you could say, is Mr. Cole Schultz. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great. You?
Good. I want some excitement through this podcast, so we're going to hit you, all right?
All right.
You both just got back from an awesome trip. Can I say where it's at?
Yeah.
South Dakota?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to hit you guys with a ton of questions tonight because they're questions that are deep down truthful. I don't know all the answers. Have I been shedding, hunting? Absolutely. Do I have private ground I can go on? Absolutely. Once in a while, there's some bangers, and you're going to find some good deer, but I never really got into it. I never thought about, hey, let's make a trip, get a hotel room, put on some miles. So that's what you're here for. So with that being said, we got to answer the question, especially for the listeners out there that may or may not know. I'm hoping that everybody that's listening knows, like a white-tailed deer is what we're talking about. Some muleys, we can even talk about elk a little bit. Cole, you got some extensive history with that. Yep. But they're all going to shed just a little bit different in time. When I say that, you guys help me out. Like, why does a white-tailed buck shed its antlers? I know it's common knowledge, but why?
Biggest thing is stress.
Well, whitetail's testosterone is peaked during the rut, as we know, which is November, and then December, January, February, testosterone starts dropping, and antlers naturally fall off too from that.
And a big reason, if they've lived through the rut, if they've lived through December time, right, and nutrients and so on and so forth. But the reason that they are going to lose the pedicle cells that is attaching and feeding the blood that's going to shut down is because they're already starting to grow a new base, right?
Yep, correct.
So unlike an antelope pronghorn, where they just shed their caps, we're actually shedding bone. So they're considered antler. Yep. We don't really say, you hear the word bone. I've already said it 15 times on this podcast, but it's an antler. It's not a horn, and bone for a period of time. But it hardens, and obviously the pedicle of the new antlers, hopefully bigger and better, are making their way up, and we got a shed to make room, right? So as we talk about that, there's a lot of factors that could make them drop early or make them drop late. Am I correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Give me some of those factors.
If you got something that's injured on your property, you can't be surprised if you're seeing a shed buck before December 31st.
Okay.
Yeah, like Jack was saying, too, a lot of stress, weather, huge thing. If you have a really harsh winter, they're going to shed early.
And in Minnesota, we're done December 31st, right? So we really don't get into a lot of this, but I got a chance to hunt Iowa and you guys have hunted there as well, like in some other states where we extend into that January 15th. Missouri's another state that's like that. You'll see some of the, monster buck videos. The guys will shoot a stud and they go to turn him around or drag him out and boom, the antlers fall off, right? So they're getting super close around that January time on a healthy herd. But sometimes, like the other day when you guys were in South Dakota, I called you and I was down the interstate and I seen a deer that still had a full rack, right out on a frozen pond. So things can happen. I would say, and you guys are not quite half my age, but we've seen in the last 15 years, the Minnesota weather winter-wise isn't what it used to be. We're not having feet like 10 to 12 to 15 feet of snow a year. We're not having, we have some cold temperatures, but they usually hang around for 4 or 5 days to a week. And then we go in peaks and valleys. I remember as a kid, there used to be 20 feet of snow, snowbanks higher than the house, and we'd have minus 30 degree, wind chills for 2 weeks. Like those can play a lot of factors in your deer herd. Yeah. How healthy are your deer herd? The evolution of food plots and people that are feeding and taking care of their deer herd. Each of you have your own separate farms. Do you have food plots in right now that they're eating?
So I personally also have, I'll give them hay and stuff like that, but I also do have plots. What I noticed is a lot of the mature deer, you'd think they would go straight to that easy food source. That's not always the case. So I'm almost, as far as next year, one thing I'm learning is I'm probably going to do more plots than I am going to feed them, because what I found this year is I fed them very, very regularly. And not only are they holding longer because they have that reliable food source and easy to them, but they also, for whatever reason, seems that those bigger deer, more mature deer, want to be in the food plot. Like when it was negatives and I was expecting deer to be all over my easy food source, that was not the case. And when I went out there, what I noticed is they were digging all over in the beans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I supplement feed alfalfa and corn throughout the winter in my little permission piece.
Mm-hmm.
But as we found out in South Dakota too, with these less harsh winters, I would say this is a pretty less harsh winter. When there's not a lot of snow on the ground, not a lot of ice for them to dig through, they're hitting green for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, they're hitting green fields. We found sheds right in the green field, 3 of them within 50 yards in South Dakota.
So like turnips, brassicas, alfalfa, clover, that kind of stuff. So because there's no snow cover or light snow cover.
Yep.
Even light. If I would have known, the piece that we did find those sheds on, I can actually hunt in the fall. If I would have known that green was back there, Cole can second this, but the tracks in the rye field, those deer were hitting that in December already.
So it's funny. You guys can't see this listening to this, but I just showed Cole and Jack a picture. This was at 1835 military time tonight. We have 7 acres of standing beans. There's 27 deer in this picture, right? We're in a county, and this is another disclaimer for those of you that are listening. Some parts of Minnesota, you can supplemental feed and some you cannot. So you have to check with the DNR and regulations on where you can and where you can't. We can't. But is there a little trickling creek around that? Like, is there a loophole? We left 7.5 acres of beans, and they're good beans, So that's kind of what we're doing. Are we supplementing feeding? No. But are we feeding the deer? In a way, yeah. Is it going to be easier to find sheds? It gives us an advantage because there's more deer in that area. They don't have to go very far. I kind of think of it like late season. We get into this, especially December, January, February, March. It's like early season. They'll bed 50 yards off of food source. So you're really not having to tromp mile and mile and mile and mile after mile. But we're talking private ground. If we're talking public ground, you got to put in some legwork. You got to figure out your deer herd. You got to figure out where they're going, right? Public, the DNR, very, very few public pieces, they actually plant food plots, right? So do you have deer that are munching on natural browse, natural grass, if the winter provides it, or are they moving off? Are they going to a neighboring farm? Like, you got to do some research on what's going on. I'm assuming that you guys are like map savages, like you Onyx or HuntWise or whatever that you have downloaded, right?
Onyx is on the truck screen constantly.
So let me ask you this: as far as people that are listening, maybe we've intrigued them a little bit, so they're going to turn up their volume. Like, how does a person start if you have your own private ground, right? And then how versus somebody that doesn't have their private ground? Like, what's some tips and tricks on what are we going to do to get started?
Biggest thing is for private, monitor your deer. And if you're 40% off, like if your big one shed, stay out of there. If you have, let's just say 65% left holding, stay out of there. Because the last thing you want to do is you want to go in there, blow them out of there, and they're going to go and they're going to shed on the neighbors, or they're going to move. And those 2 weeks that they move, they could very easily shed. If you can just stay out of there and monitor and wait until at least 70% off, you very well then are going to be more successful, from what I've seen. I mean, I've gotten giddy and I've walked the property, and for a week straight, I was just getting does. So I clearly booted them straight out of there. Learn the hard way.
Have you found that even like it's kind of like during season, because they're still a prey animal, if you bust them out, it takes them a while to come back?
A little bit. It's not going to, he's not going to disappear for a month necessarily, but he did disappear for over a week. And I'm talking 5.5, 6.5-year-old deer.
Yeah. So you just don't want to take that chance of losing that rack or a side of it.
Exactly. Yep.
On public ground, do you guys search public ground?
Yeah, I'm a huge public guy. I have zero property in my name. I mean, the one private piece I have is permission piece.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I've been raised and born off public, so all my antlers are off public. But, yeah, public's a whole different ballgame, because you're competing with guys that are walking January 1st. You're competing with guys that are walking every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, booting deer off that piece where if you leave it as a private ground till first week of March, you're gonna scoop 10 antlers.
Right.
For public, you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Public, like along with Cole's saying, public early and often. I mean, you gotta.
So it's almost exactly opposite.
Yes.
I mean, to a point.
To a point. Right.
Let's say that you found a piece of public. I'm not even going to name the public around here because we all know what we're talking about. But for those of you that are not in the state, Minnesota, I would say, has 5 public pieces within an hour of the cities that everybody knows about, right? It doesn't matter if you're a duck hunter or whitetail deer hunter or turkey hunter. Like, everybody knows about them. But let's paint a little picture. So how many times have you hit that public piece since the end of season?
Minnesota public? Or?
Yeah. Yep.
Good handful of times.
Alrighty.
You got to hit it early, middle, and late.
Yeah.
All about competition too. Which I'm not a huge fan on either. Where we go out west, we try to get more private permission.
Right.
Or the thing why we go out west compared to Minnesota is because there's a lot more public and there's a lot more walk-in pieces.
Okay.
Where walk-in pieces, you can't legally pick up sheds, but if you get landowner permission, then you can. Which we do that too. Yep. For Minnesota, you got, like you said, you got your 5 parks and that's it.
Yeah.
And everybody and their cousin walks them.
So if you were to, let's talk a little bit about the whole South Dakota. How hard is it in 2025 versus 2019?
Super hard.
To get permission.
I blame COVID for a lot of stuff.
Really?
If I'm being honest.
Absolutely. COVID opened the door. Everybody was trapped inside, needed a new hobby. I mean, we always joke about in high school, we would tell our buddies, we're going shed hunting. They're like, you drive around and look for buildings.
Yeah. In high school, nobody knew what we're talking about. Now everybody does it.
Right.
And social media is a big problem for that too. Which, yeah, social media is great, but I mean, it spreads the word really quick.
Well, I mean, it's funny to me how passionate and don't take this wrong way. It's funny to me how passionate guys are. Now, I have some really good friends in Iowa, and then we have some lease ground in Missouri, right? It's more serious if you catch a trespasser shed hunting than like hunting. And I'm not lying. Like, people are kind of a little bit more sneaky, but there's people on patrol, like making sure guys aren't picking up sheds. And we've all heard the terminology road shed, right? Yep. Like, you go buy a green turnip field that's right there next to a gravel road or whatever, and you can see them plain as day, most of them, right? Road shed hunters are worse than road hunters when it comes in the fall. But it's funny to me how passionate guys are, because I'll talk to Jack. I work with Jack every day, and he gets just as excited when he finds a good shed. You know, any shed is cool, but a good shed. Like, I don't know how many times we snapped back and forth when you guys were plucking these.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a couple weeks ago or a week ago or whatever. But we're talking legit deer. Do you use it as a story builder? Like your relationship goal? We talked about a little bit about your deer, you know, in private, but you got some slammers. Jack's got some slammers. Like behind me, we got Bender and we have your other buck, which is really close to where you were finding sheds. Do you create it as a storyline? Do you, like, what do you guys get out of this shed hunting deal? Like, why? Why are you doing it?
I tell everybody that doesn't really know anything about it. It's like an adult Easter egg hunt. You don't know what you're going to find, and you don't know where you're going to find it.
Yep.
That's
Every
a good
time,
analogy.
every time I find one, we get so excited.
It's every antler is unique in its own way. So you're not walking around looking for a 4-side or looking for a 5-side or 6-side. You have no idea what you're looking for. And honestly, having no idea what I'm looking for instead of looking for a specific deer shed is honestly, it's almost like less stressful too. Like you're
Right.
out basically just moseying around.
Yeah, like, so let's rewind, and it's October, and we all have trail cameras and we're running them, and we got a relationship, and we named a deer whatever, cardiac, and like, you're after this deer, your dreams, you sit up at night thinking about this buck, and again, he shows up on your cell cam, and you get a picture on your phone, and like, okay, you go out hunting this buck we call cardiac. Shed hunting, yeah, we might still run some cameras, like, but once they shed, unless they have a identical mark or something, you know, like,
Yep.
Who knows?
Like I've been following a buck for 4 years on my permission piece right around here, and I call him Gray Ghost because he's a ghost and he has a gray eye. He's blind in one eye.
Yeah,
which is cool. I got four sheds off this buck.
And how many times have you seen him hunting?
3 in 4 years.
And nothing close enough, obviously.
Bailey, my fiance, was actually full draw on him 3 years ago. No good shot, which is good because he blew up into heavy mature 8-point, but. Yeah, so I mean, it's cool like that. Like, my permission piece is not big; it's 24 acres. So I mean, chasing a deer that just hangs around in that area for that long is super cool too. Like, he's my target buck this fall. But like you said, I run cameras all year round just to trace him, and he has a blind eye, so I can tell when he sheds. It's like, yep, there he is. He's got one eye, you know.
So, my brother told me this. He kind of gets into the whole shed hunting deal, and back when he had dogs, he actually, was trying to train a dog, and this is before shed dogs were really big, right? But he said it's like reading a good novel, and you know that you're at the last chapter, and then all of a sudden, let's say Bender, you find his shed. It's like a whole new book because you know that he has lived up to this part, and it's a 90% chance that he's going to live, unless he gets hit by a car, that he's going to live through spring, and then you're going to start getting pictures of new bone and velvet and go from there. So it prolongs your relationship with your animal.
Oh, 100%.
On the contrary, could be a whole new chapter. Could be a whole new buck that you had no clue even existed. And pretty soon you have a 85-inch side with a 5-inch flyer. And you're going to work just as hard to figure out that, like, is it a one and done deal? Did he get spooked off of the neighbors and he come over here? Or is he, whatever it may be. So it's an ongoing story. But you guys also shed hunt property that you'll never maybe ever get to hunt.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's still a drive. Like, and do you share that information with the owner? Like, when we get permission, let's just say you went to Missouri and you found a piece, and the guy and the gal are like, yeah, you can go shed hunt all you want. If you find some morel mushrooms, let us know. You know what I mean? So let's say you find a giant. Like, are you sharing that information, or is it just kind of I found my golden Easter egg? This is pretty cool.
I mean, if they're chill enough, I mean, in our Iowa permission piece we have, they're super chill people, super nice. So we show all of our antlers to them.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, if you have a plan on maybe hunting it and you think maybe they might hunt it or they have relatives that would want to hunt it, maybe keep it on the DL a little bit. But
well, how many times, if you have permission on that piece, are there relatives hunting it? A lot?
It's surprisingly, yeah.
down south, it's so hard. It's so hard to even get permission on private nowadays. It's crazy.
Especially down south. I mean, it's seriously, sheds are like gold down south. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, like last year in Iowa, we've been walking this piece for 2 years now, and we go down there. I have the guy's number. I text him every spring before we go down there.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, come down this weekend. That'll be great. We get down there. He's like, oh, yeah, my son and his friends walked it last weekend. We're like, dude.
Done.
Yeah, it's 5.5 hours.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not an easy trip.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how many states do you guys shed hunt in? Just the 3 that we've talked about on the podcast?
Yeah.
South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. With that being said, you're South Dakota done, or do you go back?
We just we did 3 days this year, and that's we try and plan it the best we can. Last year, I believe we went mid-March, Cole.
We went either early March or mid-February, I think. But
yeah, this year we went mid-February, and we timed it beautifully. And that's another thing is we're going in cold turkey. Like, yes, I have some cameras connected to where we picked up these sheds, but in South Dakota, where I'm at, it's a big crop farm. So as soon as the crops are out, the deer moved. Like, they move north. I mean, easily 5 miles. I mean, they're off the property. So it's really hard to gauge, and you can only take so much time off work that it is about timing too.
So what is this your best year ever in South Dakota?
By far.
Quality-wise.
Give us a little bit of what you found. I'm looking at them, but
I mean, yeah, we got 5 solid antlers. Jack found a nice, 130-inch set.
Yep.
I haven't scored these yet. I mean, they're all pushing.
So this is a set, or this set's not?
Those
here?
are all singles.
These are singles.
Yeah.
The one looks like it could maybe, but they weren't even close to each other.
No, they're probably about 25, 30 miles apart, I'd say.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, so these right here are just some of the bigger ones. I haven't scored them yet. They're probably all, I would say, mid high 60s, if not over 70 inches. But
and that's kind of a big deal, right? Like you have your naysayers like, I don't care what the deer scores. It made me shake in my tree. Well, yeah, okay, cool. I get it. Like, yeah, we all know who Ted Nugent is. But in the same sense, there's a scoring chart. Like, if somebody says, yeah, I shot a 150, like, damn, dude, show me pictures.
Yep.
In my case, if it's 130, like, I'm doing backflips.
Right.
But in shed, divided by 2, and then we're not talking inside spread, right?
no inside spread, just that antler itself.
So let's say you found a match. You just said that Jack found a 130-inch set, whatever. You don't really know how wide he is, but when you set a pair of antlers in your hands, you kind of have an idea geometry-wise. What's an average inside spread that you use?
I always go for 18. I don't know what you ended up giving him, but
I just gave him 16. I mean, he's clearly 3.5, and he wasn't. I just kind of roughly guessed where the pedicles would come off his head, and I gave him 16.
So do these just go in a pile, or do you guys actually put them on like will you buy those skull things?
I personally don't like those. I just display them on. I have a huge bookshelf downstairs. It's like a huge built-in half a wall bookshelf. I just display them all in there, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah,
and then just pile the rest of them.
And then of course, if you harvest the buck and you have sheds from them, like, there's a little bit of a storyline. We've all seen the pictures with 3 sheds sitting out in front of them, but you guys have some pedestal mounts. Is there sheds on the bottom of that?
Yeah, I got one
from him or from that buck.
Yep.
Okay. So South Dakota was good. You guys hit it, timed it right, more than what you brought in here, but it just it gets a guy that didn't have a very successful fall. Talking about me. Jack, you
same boat.
Yeah. You had a very successful fall. Congratulations, by the way. For those of you who don't know that buck, not saying that you'll ever probably see it, but it's a Jim Dandy. It gets me excited, and I don't really care to shed hunt. Like I mean, we have some great property. Jack was with here last year when my mom walked out. She walked that entire bean field I just showed you the picture of. And then I'm like, no, you need to walk this trail to the bedding. It's 50 yards from that to that, and it's a little cutoff trail, super thick, and she found a match set of the 138, which blew up.
Yeah.
She also found a half of the CJ, my dad's buck that he shot, that was 171. So now we have kind of like a storyline, right? As you guys, where do you go next, and when do you go?
We head down to Iowa 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th.
Yeah, it'd be next weekend.
Yep.
As of today. But and then,
So is snow on the ground like suck? Will you change your plans?
So we actually just had that conversation this year because we've always gone to South Dakota, and in South Dakota we end up usually walking grass 80% of the time, and trails and grass, they all look the same. And then this year we actually had like that 1 to 2 inch dusting of snow, and it made a game changer because you can see the fresh track, you can see the fresh sign on top of the snow.
I see what you're saying.
Where instead, because there's mazes in this grass, and then you can actually see, they're only using these 3-4 trails,
right,
instead of these 20. So that saved us a ton of
time.
time.
Take your variables out a little bit.
Yeah, that was a huge thing.
How much snow did they get today down in Iowa? Do you go? No,
I don't know.
Like 4 or 5 inches though, but by the time we're supposed to be in the 50s and the 60s Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like a lot of that snow's gonna be gone.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it.
Yes.
You guys have a pair of glasses that are made for mushroom hunters.
Mushroom hunters, fun guys.
Do they work?
Jack likes them. I used them. I didn't even break them out of the case this last trip, but they definitely pop white for sure. Which we were walking a lot of grass. And grass is kind of yellowy white.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want it to blend in, and it was cloudy already.
Okay.
Which is another thing we can talk about too, is cloudy days.
Yeah. We're gonna get into tips and tricks here in about 5 minutes after we talk about your Iowa deal. And that's where you guys are going to really want, guys and gals, you're going to really want to key in, because just talking here before we did this podcast, like there's 5 or 6 things that they've said, and I'm like, what? Really? But it'll make sense. It's awesome tips. So Iowa, paint me a picture of what we're doing in Iowa. You guys are going to take off on Thursday morning, right? You're going to drive down. You got a room?
Yeah, we will have a room. We'll actually probably leave Wednesday night, bomb down there. We usually wake up at like 2, get down there at sunrise, and as soon as it gets light out, we unload the little wheeler and hit the farm immediately. We start by usually hitting the field if it's not dissed. Pretty easy to spot the antlers. Like the one year, Cole was scooping like crazy. They had a cover crop and they ran radish. Well, the farmer already told us how many deer were coming in this field that night, so we were like, well, there's gonna be sheds. So we'll do that, and then from there we just kind of move on to like cedars and timber.
So do you like, you get there that early in the mornings, there's still deer on the food? Like, do you sit there with a spotting scope and watch them leave, or is you just go balls to the wall?
We just usually just go balls to the wall. I mean,
in Iowa. This year in South Dakota, that's actually how we got some of our spots.
You sound like Mike Kenny when you say South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Mike, if you're listening, we're not making fun of you, but it's fun to talk to you on the phone because you talk about South Dakota.
But no, that's also a really good idea too, because we're getting to our spots in South Dakota. Like, we actually got early, like half hour before sunlight. And then, fields were loaded out there. It's like, okay, let's drop a pin here, let's drop a pin here, drop a pin here, and go and ask,
Yeah.
It's another good method.
How many, let's say you asked 6 landowners, how many did you get permission on?
0.
Dang, is that tough?
Dude, it's a grind, man.
Really?
Like, we'll say we have a 4-day trip, we'll probably be door knocking for a day and a half, if not 2 days.
It's that intense.
To get maybe 1 yes. But say you get 3 yeses in Iowa, usually you're gonna find bone on property if it's a decent property. So
the thing, it's got to be a little bit of a like, if I wanted to search for gold from a pirate ship that sank, I'm not going to go to Superior, Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go down to the Cancun, the Bahamas, or wherever that may be. When you go to Iowa, that there's a chance that you may find, if I said mid-80s, like, is that, you can find one per trip on your guys' pieces, not
I'd say it's always
is that
70-inch
way
antler is big. 70's big. Like if
Yeah.
you get 170, if you get a 60-inch antler, I mean, I would be happy
yeah.
with that for a weekend trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, you're in the land of giants. 80-inch antler is not going to be rare to find.
Right.
Is it hard to find? For sure.
Oh, absolutely. That hasn't already been picked up.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Which, talking about public and private, we always try to do private in Iowa just because so many people walk public in Iowa. Because Iowa already gets pounded.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we always try to stick with private permission in Iowa.
Go ahead.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit, and like this trip, being we're taking the extra day, we probably are gonna waste a whole day door knocking, and there's gonna be some people who tell us to get lost. I mean, there's some guys out there that will literally have a sign that says "Turn around now," just because it's become so big.
Yeah.
And like Cole was saying, though, let's say we knock on 60 doors and we get 3 S's. That's our whole trip next year.
Right.
That's 3 farms that we have for the following year. Let's say we door knock the next year, we don't get anything, whatever. And then the following year pretty soon we're going to have 8 farms. Now it took us a while to get them, but now we have access until we want to give it up.
Do either of you have a shed dog?
Nope.
Have you used one or been around one?
Never have.
No.
I think it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think it takes the fun out of it. I mean, I shed hunt for me to find them.
Yeah.
Not a dog.
That's a good point. This is how dumb I am to it. Like I watch Lee and Tiffany, right? And they got those beautiful labs from Dawkin, I believe. And like they come running over the hillside with gigantic white shed. I'm like, I guess cool, but I get it.
Which I know a lot of guys sell antlers. I mean, antlers are priced at I know elk sheds are like up to $20 a pound for a brown elk shed. So, I mean, most guys shed hunt to sell antlers to make money.
Really?
You have a good, successful shed season, you can make, $4 or $5 grand. But, I mean, me and Jack just hoard them right now. So, I mean, it's more fun for just us to find them.
Yeah. Get your stockpile up.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask you something on public. Now I forgot exactly what I was going to ask. So I guess it doesn't matter. Let's get into some tips, some tricks. And by all means, you don't have to give away everything, but it's a podcast for everybody. When you get to a farm, is there a certain part? Are we just doing bedding? Are we doing trails? Are we doing fence crossings? Are we doing, what are you looking for right out of the gate?
So like Jack said, usually we take the wheeler down right away. Usually we aerial scout. We're like, okay, this is a good piece. And then next thing is get a yes. Next thing is we usually drive the field edges if there's crop and it's not dist. Drive the field edges, look in the bedding areas next. And then honestly, another really good spot is that transition zone between the food and the bedding. Ideally, if you can find grass in between, or even Iowa is really common for having a 20-yard stretch of grass against the woods right next to the egg. They freaking bed right in that like crazy too. And that's a really good spot to check too.
So is it south side facing slopes because the sun's there longer and it's warmer? Do you find a common trait? Is it north side because is it just where they're getting out of the wind? Is it close to water? Is it always bedding?
I mean, yeah, every YouTube video you watch and everything you listen to is south side, which you're not wrong. I mean, 70% of deer bed on the south side in the winter. It's naturally warmer.
Yeah.
But I mean, me and Jack were watching a video last week and he's like, say you have a really strong south wind, like a 25 mile an hour south wind, and it's cold. So it's blowing -20 still. Those deer are going to move to the north facing hill.
North side of the hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Not saying all of them will, but a lot of them will.
Yeah.
I mean, deer aren't dumb.
Right.
They know where to sit to stay warm. So
is it true if they have to cross under a fence or over a fence, you'll find sheds?
Yes. That's pressure when they land or whatever they're doing, duck and catch it. But honestly, for as much fence line that we searched this year in South Dakota, it was pretty mind-blowing on how we only found one on the fence.
Which is crazy, yeah, because usually, yeah, like Jack was saying, ditches and fences, it's the aggressive up and down, the jumping knocks antlers off. I mean, we walked through some crazy ditch crossings in this one area, perfect, literally ideal. Like, we're like, dude, how do we not scoop 5 antlers right here? Mm-hmm. And nothing. I mean, it's definitely ups your chances looking at those spots for sure, but it's not a given.
How many did you find in food plots or food? Might have been egg field.
3.
Well, I found 2 on the edge of the corn. We found those 3 in the rye.
That's right. Yeah. And
That
then,
other side of yours was on corn. 90% of antlers are around food, if not within a quarter of a mile within food, I would say.
and that,
Sure.
that quarter of a mile, one thing I'll add is we found all, for the most part, right sides this year, besides my set. And when I did find my set, I mapped it on Onyx because we were just confused. You know, some of the sheds Cole picked up, very, very dense. It's like, how are they not laying side by side? So I mapped out.
What do you mean when you said very dense?
Like a very, very heavy antler. So he clearly can feel that weight on the one side of his head.
I got you. So they're heavy.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And like mine was 0.6 miles. So he hung on to that thing for 0.6 miles.
Which is crazy.
I was just going to ask you, like, you know, you see some videos. We got a buck that shed on trail camera video one time, and like he shook his head. So they're laying there, maybe 15 yards apart or whatever, right? But they'll hold, like they'll shed one side and then hold. Like it's not a thing to go, they don't roll rub a tree or...
No, they will hang on to that. And I think part of it, actually my dad brought this up, is especially 3 bucks in that rye field, there still might be a little bit of dominance, especially if there's still some headgear. You know, if they tickle just a little bit and it pops that one side off, wasn't necessarily ready, but it came off, that explains why, you know, maybe they aren't side by side. It's really hard to tell, but that made sense.
Well, that, and then usually, like Jack said, the denser the antler, usually the more odds they're going to be laying pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
But like that gray ghost buck, I found one side of him already this year, and I had him on trail camera with both sides 12 hours prior. I cannot find the other side to save the life of me. Could it be on the neighbors? Very likely, because I graded the crap out of my property. But you think it'd be close, because that's Jack felt that antler. It's just super heavy antler.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. And then I have usually smaller deer, like forks, basket 8s and stuff. They usually tend to hold on sides for longer because they're light. You know, it's not really bothering them.
Right.
Like I had a deer on camera for 14 days with a half rack. You know. It's more common.
And it's interesting. So like the 2 deer that we found last year, the 2 that meant something, the 138, they were literally 5. There was 1 on each side of the trail. One was hung up in some buckbriar, you know, off of the ground. The other one was on the ground. But CJ wasn't but 30 yards from where those 2 dropped. But we went bow-legged and blind trying to find the other side. And like I say, it might be on the neighbors. We will not ever get permission on that piece. And that's, I mean, we're literally 150 yards from the property line. So it could be sitting there. It could be chewed up now, but we would never know.
Right.
But you had a 130-inch deer shed both sides 10 feet apart, and then you had a 160-inch deer last year that one side was there and they didn't know where the other side was.
Which was Jack was saying. I mean, look at those antlers. I mean, they're all 150, 160-inch deer, and it's like there wasn't another side of those deer in half a mile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wide open in South Dakota. I was like, dude, where are the other sides?
And so, and you can answer this or not answer this. Are any of these deer close to where you can hunt?
Yeah.
So you're excited.
Yeah. I was talking to him like when we were over on that side. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the sign that I had no idea.
Did you ever find your deer?
No, and he's still alive.
You never found sheds?
Never found his sheds. And the crazy part is,
because you would know if you found that deer.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to fit my hand around his main beam. He just blew up when I hit him. You know, he get injured and grew goofy, but he's so old that he's so massive that it's very easy to tell.
What? So Minnesota is made up of some parks.
Yep.
We call them parks, but there's some where government owned or DNR owned or whatever. They're not public walk-in, but there are what we call MBRB hunts. Are you able to shed hunt parks, or is there like fine lines or?
See, that's the tricky thing, because I mean, you can Google stuff and it gives you both answers, yes and no. Like I literally did on South Dakota. You literally have to call the game warden and ask. You know, like,
and I'll just throw this out there because we all know where Elm Creek Park Reserve is, right? Can you go shed hunt that? No. Okay, and we all know that there's some stuff in there,
right?
So where states allow a shed trap. Have you ever seen them work?
I've seen videos.
Right.
I've never. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's cool.
Explain to listeners what a shed trap is. Like,
so it's just one of those things like where you got a heavy deer trail. You could make a V with 3 fence posts and like chicken wire and have corn tied up against that V, and it works both ways. They jump over it if they want nothing to do with it. That right there, that movement is shaking their head. Now, when the time comes, if they just so happen, to get a bite or whatever, and I gotta stress too, if you are gonna ever do this, if it's legal in your area, use bungee cords because that has flex. So even if they do get caught up in it, it's flexing. It's not stiff. They're not gonna freak out. They're just gonna pull right out of it. But that right there, again, timing wise, if they're hitting it at the right time, boom, you could get lucky. But it's not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm. So, and let's say you guys are shed hunting, right? Stuff happens. People wound a buck and he goes down a river bottom and he dies or gets hit by a car or whatever. Where you're headed down south, you might run into EHD bucks. Mm-hmm. Like, give me the protocol. You call the DNR. One of you stays with the animal. The other meets the DNR on the road. Like, have you run into that yet or not?
Usually if we do, we just mark the deadhead on Onyx.
Okay.
And then just whenever we get it serviced, call a DNR and get a salvage tag.
Gotcha. They're pretty cool about it.
Yeah, it's easy. Free tag. You just call them. They give you a free tag and
gotcha.
You take it.
Gotcha. So you kind of wrapped it all up. We give you some tips and tricks on things to it. This is something that has grown immensely and not just on private ground. We were just talking to a guy that was in the shop and he has oodles of private ground, but he also goes to a ton of public. Like the more the merrier, right? Mm-hmm. You guys, Cole, do a lot of public. Jack, you do a lot of private, and then together you do private. What is like give me a story of the biggest antler size of shed, or is it cool to find both sides? Is that like the pinnacle, or is it cool to find a 60, 70 inch side? Like, what's the best?
I personally, and I think Cole's on the same page with me, I'd rather find a giant one side than, like a 130 inch set. Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome. Deer has a lot of potential, but finding a hammer of just one side that's really, really big is awesome. And that goes to actually our first year, me and Cole just kind of figuring everything out. We couldn't find anything. And it took us a while to realize that, okay, South Dakota grass, that's just what we have to do. You can't necessarily pick them out from 20 yards when you're walking through that CRP. You're picking a trail and you're walking it, and you either come across bone or you don't. Fresh sign keeps you moving. But like, I literally tripped and fell, and I was like, what? Like it felt like somebody grabbed my leg. So I turned around, scared like almost, and laying there, I kicked up an absolute freak shed that was buried in the CRP.
Like this year's or last year's?
This is 3 years ago now.
But was it that year's shed, or was it a
yes, fresh. Okay. Yeah. It was he's a 5-side with a double brow, and he's got a 10-inch flyer coming in the inside of his main beam.
Like a dagger almost.
Like a dagger.
Yeah.
What is your biggest story or coolest?
One of my biggest whitetails is probably one of those over there. I mean, I got some, Jack's seen them. I got some really good ones, but those are, probably one of my biggest. Biggest shed is elk shed.
We didn't even talk about elk sheds,
which is cool. I mean, we're actually going. We did South Dakota, me and Jack do, and then going to Iowa, and then I'm going to the Black Hills with Bailey. End of April usually is when the elk start shedding really good.
Cool.
But yeah, my biggest antler is elk shed. Yeah. Like Jack said, I probably love scooping a giant single, and then it's even better if you can match it up.
Right.
Like me and Bailey were walking this one hillside of a ridge for elk, and I scoop a really nice 6-point brown. And it was a good amount of snow. It had like 3 inches of snow there still, but it was warm. I was like, let's come back tomorrow. I can't see Jack Diddley right now. So Came back the next day, gridded the whole rest of that hillside. Ended up finding the other side right down the hill, like 200 yards. But that's it's nasty, like bushy, grassy. It's hard to describe the terrain out there. So I mean, you literally got to walk within 20 yards of them too.
Right.
And they're huge antlers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love them both. I like finding a huge one and then matching it up even better.
Just to let you know, like, about how I got my tips and tricks as far as like what I'm gonna do next fall. I blatantly had no idea. We were going down a dirt road. I had no idea this was still part of the farm, because out in South Dakota, a lot of those guys lease a lot of property underneath a different name. Well, I didn't realize that where I'm hunting, those guys lease this piece. So we're going down a dirt road, 50 miles an hour, and he hollers right there. And I was like, there's no way. I mean, I'm just trying to get out of the ruts because it was soft.
Yeah.
I stopped. I wasn't even going to get out. If I wouldn't have got out, I wouldn't have found my one side.
Mm-hmm. I should almost play that video on here. Jack was screaming like an 8-year-old.
He runs out there, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, it just, the eye that he has is unmatched. And then I go to the farmer where I do hunt, and I'm like, do you know who owns this? And he's like, yeah, me. And I was like, oh, I felt so stupid after that.
That was crazy, man, because we found a road set the year prior. It was literally right in the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
Jack found a nice 5-side, and I was like, dude, the other side's got to be right around here. I was like, it's literally, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere for him to go.
Right.
And I'm like, we're driving again. We get in the truck. I just walk around a little bit, didn't see it. We get in the truck, go down. I was like, dude, stop. Backed up. I just saw the tip of the G2 sticking out of the grass in the ditch. I was like, there's the other side right there. Yeah. And then I was like, dude, we're not going to top that a road set. Mm-hmm. And then this year, I see that hammer, and then I'm going out to grab that, and then Jack's like, dude, I see his other side right there. And then he runs up to it. I was like, oh my God. And then he's like, it's not him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, don't touch him. Let's look around. And I see another one. I'm like, dude, there's his other side right there. It ended up being all 3 different deer, all right side antlers. Which I was like, dude, okay, we just topped the road set.
Right.
Year, but
buy a lottery ticket.
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But
on, so shed hunting, when you put it all into, like, you can do it one or two ways. I like the Easter egg analogy, right? Mm-hmm. You can definitely answer some questions of how your deer herd is, bucks. Obviously, we know the whole dreaded when all the bachelor groups, and you got 6 deer that are all just slammers, and then all of a sudden they shed velvet and a couple of them move off, if not all of them, right? But you can narrow down your core area of a whitetail.
Absolutely.
People say that they're not patternable. I say that you're hunting the wrong property, or a property where they can't be. Definitely, all 3 of us can sit here and say there are some rut spots. Like, that buck will only be there on the other side of the bedding, whatever the wind direction is, a northwest wind, like 3 times a year. That's just common knowledge, right? There's some spots, even on our home properties, there's some spots that you only hunt it 3 or 4 times a year because you know that your chances of him being there are not there. But shed hunting can add to the story, can add to your knowledge. Have you found any yet that were like super fresh, bloody still? Or
yeah, I should have brought it in. I found a super, super fresh one. That's another thing too, which is cool. Like, I don't know if any of those bucks have wax rings on them still.
What's that mean?
So grab those antlers, Wade. So around that white pedicle, you will see like a grayish ring.
Like that one?
Yeah, so that one still has the wax ring on it. So when, I don't know exactly how long that ring lasts, but fresh antlers always have that. And then like those other 2 won't have it. So that tells you like, okay.
I'd give my left leg to see this deer, you know, especially because what's he going to do this year?
For real, dude. That's a dense antler too, ain't it?
Like mass.
Yeah.
There will be cameras on that side this year.
Oh, this is off your farm?
Yeah.
Well, like Jack was saying, he didn't even know he could hunt over there.
Yeah,
you know, we scooped those. It's like, okay, where's Jack hunting this year? You know,
right.
Jack doesn't know how to tie his shoes sometimes. So we're getting.
I mean, he trips over 70-inch antlers. So,
guys, this has been awesome. I wish we probably would have done this after Iowa, but
that's right.
You know, you guys, I think you're having a year, and it's just what it is. I'm hoping that we have the same spring and early summer that we had this year. so that we all can put a slammer on the wall, I think is good. Anything else you want to add?
I was just going to add that I personally, a lot of people say, deer don't winter in the same area that like they summer or that move around. They definitely do. However, the one thing, like especially down south that I've seen, I'm sure Cole would agree with, but like if you get a thick patch that's tore up from bucks, there's a good chance that there's sheds in that piece.
Really?
Yes.
What is there a shed record book? Is there like, can you score these or have them officially scored? Like if I go to the Iowa Deer Classics this weekend, and then Minnesota is the next when you guys are gone, like can you bring antlers?
Yeah, that's a legit thing. I mean, I don't, but
right.
Yeah, a lot of guys do that stuff.
Like, so if you find like a giant, you can get into the shed record book.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
And it's per side and then also match set.
I believe so. Yep.
Minus inside spread because you don't know.
You don't
know. Yeah.
And you can give a really good guess, but you don't.
What
know.
is the record like typical?
That's a super good question.
I don't even know.
I assume it's close to 100 or more.
I would think so, right around there probably.
I mean, you're talking
for single. I mean,
Megatrons.
You could be 218 if you give them an 18-inch spread. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure it's right around that 100-inch.
Do you like finding typicals or non-typicals or just in general, whatever?
See, I find a lot of typicals. I mean, I don't really have a lot of non-typicals. That's like my dream shed is to find a drop or a hanger shed too. I don't know if you know what a hanger shed is. So when they shed, they're stuck in a branch or something, hanging off the ground.
Oh,
not on the ground. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have yet to find a hanger too, but
how long until like squirrels and shit get to them?
I was super bad. Like
I was
really?
terrible.
Freaking squirrels are chewing on those things damn next day, if not a week, which is another reason we love South Dakota. There's no squirrels in the grass. No.
Well, yeah, I guess I never thought about
If anything, they just get bleached and they get easier to find, so.
That's the one thing about South Dakota is I found one and I was like, God, this is last year's. Cole's like looked at me and he's like, that's like 3 years old. And it is. Yeah. It is 3 years old.
So like out there where people don't, your property that you're doing it on, right? Like you're finding some old sheds. Around here, will you find an old shed anymore?
You will, but it'll be true to nothing.
It'll be gone. Yeah.
I just picked one up on Tuesday or Monday, and the brow was left, the main beam was left, the G2, G3, and G4 gone.
Just chewed off.
On that really massive one, Wade, there's already, surprisingly for South Dakota, there's 2 marks on that main beam, on that tip of that main beam.
Mice.
This one?
Yep, the tip of that main beam.
Right here?
Nope.
Oh, main beam.
Yep. See that?
Those are.
And that was in grass, too. I was like, dude, I told Jack, dude, that's the first 2 marks I've seen on a fresh antler out here.
Gosh dang prairie dog.
Yeah, something, but it's not bad. But
no.
So, like, the grasslands, that's a nice thing, but we're in the hills.
This is a hammer.
That's a hammer. Really short main beam, but it's a hammer. Where the Black Hills is a different story. It's like Iowa. Squirrels are chewing like crazy.
Yeah.
Again. But,
and they'll do that on an elk shed?
Oh, yeah.
Have you found any muley sheds?
I have a handful. Of them, just older ones, but yeah. That's another thing we were talking about doing too, is trying to get some really cool muley sheds. I don't have a fresh brown muley shed. I just have older ones, but
right. So you say fresh brown, like that's an indication that they're not sun bleached.
Yeah. So like the antlers for selling purposes, I don't sell anything, but they have 3 selling stages. It's brown, which is fresh, hard white, which is a year old, and then chalk. Chalk is kind of where it gets that cracky pink color. Those are the 3 antler grades.
Why are they selling it for like decoration, or is there an actual? I mean, we talk about like elk farms that harvest elk antlers in velvet aphrodisiac crap or whatever.
People love them, man. Like if you go on Marketplace or Craigslist and look up deer sheds or antlers, I mean, they're all over the place.
Really?
Yeah, and people pay a shiny penny for them too.
Have you made any chandeliers or anything, or you said you just stockpile them?
I can't take myself to do that to them.
Can't I like.
Well, you're the same guy though that Jack was telling me if he like moves the shed like a 1/4 inch on your bench, like you freak out.
You move it back.
You're the Sheldon Cooper of shed hunting.
Yeah, literally.
Freaking OCD. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys being on. We'll definitely talk in the future. With that being said, we appreciate everybody listening. On behalf of Archery Country Podcast, we'll see you on down the road.